Hey, this is Carter Conlon. Welcome again to my morning. And I've really got a story to tell you today. I'm going to talk to you about angels. And I'm going to tell you a story where I believe that I actually saw an angel. And it'll be up to you to decide whether or not that really was the case. But I'm just going to present my case to you and tell you about an amazing moment of mercy that our family experienced. First of all, it says in Hebrews in chapter 1, the word says, "But to which of the angels has he ever said, 'Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool'?" Now, speaking of angels, in verse 14, it says, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister to those who will inherit salvation?" So that's like more or less the definition of angels as they pertain to our lives, that they are sent forth to help those of us who are inheriting salvation. And in Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 2, the writer says, "Do not forget to entertain strangers, for by so doing, some have unwittingly entertained angels." Well, let me tell you a story. This was many, many years ago. I had told you the story about the house that we lived in that became infested with toxic mold. And because of it, I developed a bronchial condition. But my daughter, Kate, developed a very severe asthma. And we didn't know the reason for it, but she developed it very, very shortly after we moved to New York City. And so one night we were in our apartment in New York on 51st Street, and Kate came and woke me up, and Pastor Teresa at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and she said the words that a parent never wants to hear: "Dad, I can't breathe. I can't breathe." So we took her, we laid her on the couch in the living room. I told Pastor Teresa, I could see at this point she's having a very, very hard time to draw breath, very hard. She's breathing through a hole the size of a straw, really. And I told Pastor Teresa, call 911 right away. So she's in the process of doing that. And then I looked, and Kate is actually starting to turn kind of like a blue-gray color, and she's like this, trying to breathe and can't breathe. Asthma is a serious thing. So I didn't know what to do at that point. And when you don't know what to do, my friend, pray. That's what I did. I said, "Jesus, show me what to do. Show me what to do." And I distinctly heard the voice of God in my heart saying, "Go down into the street." Now, we're on the 7th floor of this particular building. And I felt the Lord just tell me, these are the instructions. Go down into the street. Now, I told Pastor Teresa, I'm going downstairs. You stay by Kate, and we're going to wait for the ambulance. But I didn't feel in my heart there was enough time to wait. It can be a half hour before the ambulance arrives. This is an asthma attack. So I went down the elevator. I walked out of the building into the street, and here comes a yellow taxi. It's the only vehicle in the area. There's no other cars, no people, no nothing. It's 2:30 in the morning. And the taxi comes down the street. I stood in the middle of the road, flagged the taxi down. He pulled into the side of the road by the building. And it was an East Indian man. And I said, "My daughter is very sick. I have a sick child upstairs. I've got to get to the hospital right away." He said, "I'll wait here for you." So I went back up the elevator. I picked her up off the couch. By this point, she's barely breathing. Got in the elevator, came down the elevator, out, and I opened the back of the taxi, and the adrenaline was moving us. So I just literally carried her right into the taxi. And I said, "Take us to the Roosevelt Hospital," and it's up on 11th Avenue, maybe, I don't know how many blocks it was from the house, but it's probably like a 5-7 minute drive. And the taxi driver said these words, "There's not enough time. There's not enough time." Now, he didn't know her condition. I hadn't said anything to him. He didn't know it was an asthma attack, but he just said, "There's not enough time." So he went down 51st Street, turned right on 8th, the wrong way. He went the wrong way on 8th Avenue in New York City, against traffic, down about 1 or 2 blocks. I think it was 2 blocks, turned left, and there was a medical center / hospital that used to be there. And he pulled into the parking lot by the emergency door, and standing there is a doctor and a nurse. And I don't know, but they're having a break. And so when I got out of the back of the taxi, they saw her condition. The doctor ran immediately to get a stretcher. And so they come running out the door with a stretcher. I put my daughter on the stretcher, and they rolled her into the emergency room. And of course, they had to give her shots of adrenaline and everything else they had to do. I ran in after her, and I was in there for about 20 minutes until she was finally stabilized. And the doctor said, "She's going to be fine. We have her stabilized. She's breathing. I got to tell you, it was a really scary moment that we had to go through. And and then it dawned on me. I forgot to pay the taxi. We just jumped out the back seat. So I went over to the emergency entrance area, and the taxi is still there. And the man is still behind the wheel. I came out the doors and I said, I'm really sorry that I forgot to pay you for this. And he said, no. He said, I just stayed to see how your daughter was going to be. And I said, she's going to be fine. And I said, thank you. I said, you really saved my daughter's life. I've got to tell you that. I think this was so serious that I was concerned it could have been life-threatening. And I said, I want to pay you. And I took my wallet out, and he said, I don't want any money for this. I just want to be sure that your daughter's okay. And it's such a stunning moment. And then he said goodbye, and he backed up and he drove away. And so after all the dust of this event had settled, I wanted the next week to take this man and his family out for dinner to say thank you to what he had done. And so I called the cab company in New York, and I described the man, I described the car, I described the time, and I said, I want to take this man, and I said, one of your drivers saved my daughter's life, and I want to take this man and his family out for dinner, and I just want to say thank you to them. And of course, it would be great publicity for the taxi company as well. They would obviously make some news out of that. And so anyways, they called me back a short time later, and they said, Mr. Conlon, we're really sorry to have to tell you this, but there was nobody of that description and no car of that description working Midtown Manhattan that night. and then it just dawned on me. It suddenly, as soon as they said that, I remember getting into the car, and I remember him saying to me, there's not enough time, with no discussion. He didn't know what the condition was. He didn't know if, because I never told him. And then I remember him going down 51st, turning the wrong way on a street, which realistically, would have been dangerous for him to do. And knowing that there was a hospital entrance very shortly away, and having the doctor and the nurse actually standing there waiting. And then I realized, oh God, oh God, oh God, was that an angel that you sent? Because you told me to go down into the street. I prayed. I said, Jesus, what do you want me to do? And he said, go into the street. And then that car was immediately coming down. I said, and he knew there wasn't enough time without any conversation. And what settles it all, I'm going to say this, what settles it all is that when I offered to pay him, he wouldn't take any money. Now, I don't know a single taxi driver in New York City that wouldn't, and I was going to be generous with him. I wasn't just going to pay the fare. I was going to give him a fair amount of money, and he wouldn't take any payment for it. I don't know a single taxi driver in New York City. I've been there 30 years. I've never met one that would say, oh, this ride's on me. And wait outside at the hospital for 20 minutes just to see if my daughter was going to be all right. I wonder, did I miss entertaining an angel? Did I miss a ministering spirit sent forward to help me in a time of great need, in a desperate time? You realize that, had this been a very, very serious situation, worse than it was, the sorrow that could have come into our hearts, how it could have affected the ministry, all of the things that God had called us to do. But all I did is pray, Jesus, help me. Help me. I don't know what to do. And that's sometimes a very good prayer for you and I to pray. I don't know what to do. Please help me. And God sends an answer in a way that we never, ever anticipated he would. I know an angel that's an East Indian taxi driver. That's all I can say. When I go back even today and I think in my mind of this scenario, the way the man spoke, the way the man looked, the way the man waited, this was not normal. It was not natural. A man trying to support his family and driving at 2:30 in the morning in Manhattan, first of all, is not going to take an hour out of his time with no income. And secondly, he's not going to refuse a payment for a service. And I began to realize, God, I believe, I do today. I believe today that I saw an angel, and he was East Indian, and he was driving a taxi. And the taxi company said, we're so sorry, Mr. Conlon, but there was nobody. And I described him fairly clearly because there were things about him that were quite descriptive, and I thought it would be easy to find him. And the car, obviously, I knew what the car looked like, and such like, and they said, we're sorry, but there was nobody working in Midtown at that time that fits that description driving that car. I entertained an angel. I wish to God that I'd had time to take him out for dinner. Obviously, he probably doesn't have a family if he's an angel, but I missed a moment, but I didn't miss it in a sense because I know it in my heart now that God sent help. So my challenge to you today, you know, the Bible says that angels are ministering spirits sent to help those who are heirs of salvation, right? So why don't you be somebody's angel this week? I'm serious about this. Be somebody's angel. Be the person that shows up in their time of need. You know, whatever that time of need is, whether they're suffering in their mind, they have trouble in their home, just be that angel that shows up and just says, can I give you a ride to get your groceries? I don't know. Obviously, we're not angels, but you understand what I'm saying. We can be one of those ministers that shows up to help somebody in their time of need and just does something good for somebody. So be somebody's angel and do it today, for sure by tomorrow. And this is Carter Conlon. That angel coming to help me not only made my day, but saved my daughter's life. And I'm sure of that because if you had seen her, you'd have known this was a critical situation. I want to be used of God to help some family somewhere, some way. I want to be their ministering angel. I saw an angel. This is Carter Conlon, and I hope my morning will really make your day.